Hey guys, what's going on? David Avalon here with Robert Drysdale for another edition of the Breaking the Guard podcast. I was just talking with Robert about this past UFC with Demian Maia and Ben Askren, and everybody on the internet's going, "Oh, jiu-jitsu versus wrestling.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu's on top
I
again."
really thought that was dead in like 2001, but apparently it's still a thing. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's kind of insulting to Maia just to call him a jiu-jitsu guy also.
yeah.
I think, in my view, he's a very well evolved
I think he's a
MMA
good
fighter.
wrestler. Yes.
Yeah, he is a
Yeah.
very good wrestler.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's taking out guys down like Chael beautifully,
Yeah.
and then finished them right afterwards with
yeah.
the triangle. It was like a beautiful display of both wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He's taken down a lot of guys who are really good wrestlers too.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's exactly a fair comparison of it. The way I've always seen it was that Demian is at least good in two fields: wrestling, jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
Jiu-jitsu is obviously
This
a strong player,
suit. Yeah.
but he's also a very good wrestler. You know, his striking needs work, right? But I mean, you can only be good at so many things. And,
Can I make a comment on
Yeah.
the striking real quick before you throw it back to you? I suspect this is what happened. I'm good friends with Demian. Like, we have a good relationship. It goes way back. So if it sounds like a criticism, it's it's only from a friend to a friend,
of
right?
course.
But Damian's never had that kind of like knockout power. He's just not one of those guys, right? I don't either, for that matter. I'm not like, I just never have been like that super powerful kind of guy. Those guys can accelerate a lot in a very short space of time, right? Luckily for us, like, grappling is more about isometric weight distribution, so you don't have to be like a super powerful sprinter to make it a grappling. I think at some point in Damian's camp, because if you look early in his career, they were trying to make him a striker.
Yes, and
Early in his career, there's a lot less wrestling, and he was trying to strike, and he was okay. His technique was fine, but
Yeah.
he didn't have. If you don't have that knockout power, it's like one of those things where you can only outpoint your opponent.
correct.
You can't really. He's not one of those guys that's just going to be dropping people left, right, and center. So I think at some point, either between him and his coaches, they went, you know what? Why don't we just get really good at what we're already good at?
Yeah.
And the key element they're missing was outstanding wrestling. And I know for a fact that Damian put a lot of time into his wrestling. So yes, to call him a BJJ guy, you're absolutely correct. It's a bit insulting and, kind of just not real either. It's just not the truth, not the case.
For sure. I mean, I see him and I see a guy with, and like you said, he's not an explosive athlete. You know what I mean? I think he's an athlete, but he's not explosive. And for good striking, you need to be able to have that quick pop, to get KO powers, not just being strong. You can see all sorts of bodybuilders that can't hit anything.
Yeah.
You need that looseness, that explosiveness. So I think he has decent technique. He still has a good jab. He can tag people up, but like you said, it's harder to put someone away if it's just not in your wheelhouse. But I saw like those earlier fights that he had, he wasn't doing as well when he started focusing on striking too much because it wasn't like his thing. It was kind of like how they try to turn every wrestler into a kickboxer. It's like, no, just stick with the wrestling. Just learn enough where you can add your wrestling in. Because to me, wrestling by itself is a complementary art.
Yeah.
It's not a finishing art. With the rare exception of knockout slams, which are few and far between, you can't really finish somebody with wrestling. You need either striking or your jiu-jitsu to end the fight. So with Maia having wrestling and then jiu-jitsu, he can finish people.
Yeah.
Right? And he's shown he can very well. The problem I see with Ben is that he neither has grappling or striking. He has wrestling alone.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have a reliable way of finishing somebody. Now, he, of course, has some grappling skill.
Yeah.
But his striking is pretty atrocious.
Yeah. It's not what he's known for.
Yeah. You see, like, the clip of him doing, like, a spinning back fist. It was like, holy Christ. And you look at him in the midst, and it's like,
And he's been incredibly successful, too.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy. That's how good his wrestling is.
Yes, his wrestling is really good. And his grappling game, even on the ground, is heavily wrestling-based.
Yeah.
Great, mind you, good control of pins and keeping people on their back, not allowing them to go to the guard. But it's really wrestling-based, not finishing-based.
Yeah.
Right? It's very rare. I don't know how many TKO wins or submission wins he has.
I
would
had a hard time. I never really followed his career that closely because he was fighting in one, and it just we weren't getting one consistently. We went online and looked for it. Like, it wasn't like, But I know of his wrestling credentials. I know he's been very critical of BJJ in a lot of ways, and I wonder if he's just I never know where the person ends and the character begins. Right? A lot of times they're saying stuff like that to get people like hyped up and talking about it, and just to be, some people get a kick out of being an asshole.
Yeah.
So, or being disrespectful. And that doesn't mean he's that way. I personally don't believe for a second he believes what he's saying, or a lot of these critics of BJJ are believing it because they're constantly training it.
Yeah.
If you're training a triangle defense, you're training BJJ.
Yeah.
If you didn't believe in BJJ, this is how dumb this conversation is. If you didn't believe in BJJ, you would let your opponents put you in a triangle. You will let them put a rear naked choke. That's how dumb this conversation is.
Exactly.
It's like, no, you clearly believe in it. You just don't believe you believe that your defense is better than that guy's offense.
Correct.
You may have that belief,
Yes.
that's perfectly in tune with believing in the efficiency of BJJ. It's not contradictory. It's just that these guys, they think, I got out of a triangle, your BJJ doesn't work. How many punches are thrown in a boxing fight?
Yeah,
how many of them knock them out? How many are knockouts? Does that mean a left hook and a right hand don't work? But if someone gets out of a triangle, see clearly BJJ doesn't work. Like, the conversation is so stupid, always irritating me, because like, it's so, you're not putting a lot of thought behind your criticism, right? And I'm not saying I don't think this is his case, but there has been some criticism as far as how BJJ is practiced and taught, and I agree with a lot of it, actually. I think that BJJ, in terms of methodology, is behind wrestling and judo. But you got to remember, you got to put in perspective why that is. Sports like judo and wrestling and boxing, they're Olympic sports.
Yeah.
And they have been for over 100 years, right? Or whenever the Olympics started. Don't get, I'm not going to, I don't know. But, let's say 100 years, right? So that means there has been government funding, consistent government funding into physiologists, the best minds behind sport physiology, endocrinologists, you name it, nutrition, money for testing. How can we make this athlete? Imagine the Cold War, the kind of investment that went into getting the Soviets to defeat the Americans and vice versa, right? So this raises the bar as far as the methodology very, very high. Now look at where BJJ grew up. Where was BJJ evolved, right, so to speak? It was outside of the judo bubble. Judo is very good in Brazil. They have really good judo in Brazil. But it's interesting that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and judo, you would think there would be a lot of cross-training. You would think. From my experience, there's none. I never went to a judo club in my life. Now, some people have done that, but there's less than you would think, right? So as a result, BJJ is kind of like this Ronin of a martial art. It didn't have like it didn't have artificial funding. It was always very organic growth. Right. And it lacked like the know-how that these other Olympic arts have, right? So as far as methodology goes, I agree with Ben that BJJ people train jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't say wrong. I avoid the word wrong, but it's more, it could be done better. I think wrestlers are definitely more, they have better systems for training than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does.
Yeah, and just to like chime in there, just in case you haven't heard Ben Askren's opinions, he was more talking about the criticism of training, not so much the art itself being flawed, right? So he was saying that the way that local clubs are training their athletes is very unsatisfactory in his opinion compared to like a wrestling program or more traditional program. So I don't think those criticisms are off, but clearly he's not training enough on the technical side of things. Yeah. And it doesn't, I don't know, like you see it a lot, especially with wrestlers, that like they are so gifted in their particular art, but they do very little or just like the bare minimum when it comes to learning like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, because you'll see like all the wrestlers do put in a good amount of work on striking. Yeah. Right? Like now, like wrestlers are pretty good kickboxers now. You got guys like Tyron Woodley, Usman.
Their hands are better than their wrestling.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm assuming it's just coming because they're already athletic and explosive. If you're very successful in wrestling, chances are you're an explosive athlete and you're really well conditioned. So, and you have strong hips, which is a huge part of being a good striker, having good hips, right? Yeah. So, they're going to be able to strike well. I mean, Ben's probably the exception where he's not an explosive guy.
Jake Shields never got good at striking.
No, and Jake's another guy who's not.
But it's the exception to the rule.
There's exceptions to the rule, but a lot of the guys who are good striking crossovers are explosive. So they can learn how to strike really well, and I think a lot of them will just get in. I think the UFC in particular wants that. Yeah, they want people to strike.
Yeah. Oh, the rules are lean that way.
And the rules lean that way too.
They come from boxing too. Boxing influenced MMA a lot. So
for sure, and the round system and all that, it works to that favor. And I think also it's just a reality. It's harder to get takedowns in MMA now when people are able to essentially move around the cage better, and it's hard to contain them. And now people who know how to use the cage, which was once considered the asset to take people down, now it could be a great defensive tool, which could be a nightmare to take people down off if they know how to use it. So it's like, what's easier? Striking, right? And then I use my wrestling in a defensive capacity, not to get taken down, so then I can throw hands. And a lot of people, I think, have the attitude like you're saying, where they're like, jiu-jitsu doesn't work, right? And like once you learn basic defenses, it's hard to finish people, and it doesn't work as well. So don't put a lot of time into learning how to submit people. Learn defensively, which I really love. That's showing jiu-jitsu is working, because they have to work. It's a great way. They
respect it enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people say like, pressure points don't work. That's why we don't train the defenses. But if they did work, and we're like doing like little maneuvers to prevent
it's clear because they work.
Right. So like you're working the defenses, so it does work, and that is jiu-jitsu in itself. But I think the problem is they're saying the defense is much more effective than the offense.
Yes.
So they're like, we're wasting time trying to learn all this.
It's the same thing with boxing.
Yeah, they're like, we're wasting time working too much on the offense. Let's just focus on defense, and then let's work something that we know works, in their opinion, better, which is the striking. I think it's a very flawed approach. I think if you're trying to become a complete athlete, you work everything. And people like Maia show that jiu-jitsu is highly effective in MMA to this day. Yeah. To the point that other people fighting him he's lost to what? Usman by points. Yeah. He lost to Covington by points. He lost to Tyron Woodley by points.
Anderson Silva
by points, right? Like all these people who like finish people.
They outpoint him.
Yeah. They have to do everything in their power just to outpoint him and not fight him like truly, right? So to me, that's interesting, right? Because they did win those fights with the current rules and whatnot, but it's like they kind of like, I don't know, to me, it's like they kind of bitched out of the fight in the sense that they didn't try to finish the guy. I think actually, of all the guys, Covington was the closest. At the end, he actually started letting some elbows in. He engaged from the ground. No, at the end, it was more of a desperation thing. Maia had to try to finish it because he was clearly out in the points. And he was trying to pull half guard, but he was already getting battered a bit from the feet. And Covington engaged on the ground and actually did some good damage in him. So like he's the one guy that could say, all right, actually, he was trying to beat the brakes out of him at the end. But everybody else was just kind of cheesing their way out to like a point win, you know? Yeah. Not very in the spirit of trying to finish somebody. Yeah. Because he was so dangerous on the ground that they have to respect it.
So much. The respect proves my point. Yeah. Proves our case.
Yeah. That's it. It does work. You know what I mean? So like to me, like if those guys, they're beating Maia because their wrestling is superior, right? Yeah. And that's the problem. And Maia essentially now he's like, his asset is jiu-jitsu. Wrestling is the complementary thing, but it's not as strong as these guys. And he has to play a game of catch-up. And he's kind of already in the end of his career. Yes. A little bit too late for him, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only that, but like Demian, like I said, he's not a very explosive guy. Like he's nowhere near as fast as like Tyron Woodley, which is like crazy fast, right? Like some of these guys are so powerful and explosive because it's a fundamental feature of wrestling. You don't have a successful wrestling career unless you have like at least a summoner. You gotta be like above average explosive. There's no way out of it. You get weeded out in high school if you're not. The selection process starts very, very young. Sorry, buddy. Spelling bee for you. Athletic, football, wrestling. It's true. We do this at a very young age. Like the Soviets did the same thing. They call it the pyramid. You cut out you end up with the very, very best at the very top, and those guys have huge funding into being the best athletes possible, right? And the American system is not so different. Whereas Brazilian just has none of that. It's kind of like, train enough, win some tournaments, you make it up there. But like you get guys that, just because it's static kind of strength, and doesn't necessarily translate as well to MMA, in my opinion. Yeah. Right. No, for sure. But one thing I always interested, you mentioned like how wrestlers like to strike and they very rarely put time into jiu-jitsu. And I always wonder, like, why is that? Because jiu-jitsu is so much closer to their world than striking is. Yeah. I mean, when you're a wrestler, this is the way, like, if you're a D1 wrestler, you're a black belt at everything except submissions and fighting off your back. If once you learn a little bit off your back, fundamentals I think everyone should know, just at least to get back up, right? Mm-hmm. And you learn some guillotine, some rear naked choke, some arm bars, some kimuras, whatever. Now you're like a step away from being a black belt at everything, because your takedowns are very superior on average, right? To most BJJ black belts. Your base is phenomenal. Understand top control. Like you have all these tools, they're all there. It's just that it was almost like I really want to learn this whole new skill set versus putting this much time into something that's very, very close to my world. And I wish that they weren't like that. And I wonder why that is. I think that one reason is maybe they're bored of grappling. They've been grappling their whole life. And BJJ is so close, they're excited about knocking people out because they never got to do that. Maybe the knockout is exciting. Maybe because there's a cultural clash there where you get all these Brazilian instructors and these Iowa wrestlers going to go, I'm not going to learn from that Brazilian. This is kind of like, oh, it's not American, right? Like it's Brazilian or something. I made some resistance there. People that are like overly nationalistic, you know, I saw some of that extreme couture when I used to train there. There was a little bit of resistance there. Like they would learn, but like it was like there was a little, this is not Americans fight this way, right? Kind of thing. And it's not a majority, but there's some people that feel that way, right? It's a nationalistic thing. But like I think I don't know if it's boredom or they just don't like to grapple as much. They stopped wrestling too. It's very common. I've seen this a lot. Extreme couture. I was able to witness a lot of D1 wrestlers who just like their wrestling went like downhill, and they wouldn't realize like, oh no, because like skills like any, it's like a language, you know, like you'll forget your mother tongue. A lot of people don't know this. If you go 20 years without speaking English, you'll forget it.
No,
you know. Sure. So imagine wrestling or jiu-jitsu or anything else. Like so, these guys stop wrestling and their skill set goes down, and I'm always like puzzled, like why would you lose that? That's such an important tool. You know, I believe that wrestling is, as far as a foundation goes, it is the best foundation for MMA because it's going to be easier for these guys, these D1 wrestlers, to transition to MMA than it is for other striking arts to transition because it's like the middle ground. Yeah. Right? I know Joe Rogan has said this a million times, but it does determine where the fight takes place. If you have that wrestling, you get to choose where you want to fight. Correct. For the most part, right? Yeah. Not, you know, but to me, it's always been an enigma why so many wrestlers are so resistant to jiu-jitsu.
You know, I started as a wrestler. Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, I had 1 year Jeet Kune Do, but I didn't really compete in that. I didn't actually spar when I did Jeet Kune Do, so I don't really consider that my base. I consider wrestling more my base. And I remember my first introduction to jiu-jitsu in person was my brother, because he was a year older than me. He finished high school wrestling first, and right away found a place that was doing Vale-Tudo. Pretty much everything goes, you know, like back in 98. So he had, after a few months, he's like, Dave, I got to show you this stuff. It's really, really awesome. And I had the typical wrestler attitude, like, oh, I'm a wrestler, I'm going to kick your ass. We rolled, and he rear naked choked me and armbarred me a bunch of times. He's like, bah, 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 bah. I was like, all right. Yeah. Like, as soon as I finish the season, I'm going to learn this because I can't be destroyed by my brother, you know? And once I started training, I didn't, like, say, oh, I'm not going to learn how to, you know, do jiu-jitsu. I embraced it, you know? I tried to learn as much of it as I could. And initially, I was very top-heavy. I think that's natural because I'm playing to my assets. I was doing Americanas, a lot of ankle locks and heel hooks, neck cranks. But over time, I learned everything I can. You know, I don't get, for the same reason, why if you're a wrestler, you wouldn't learn all these things. I think when I get people who are wrestlers and I'm training them, I'm teaching them all the top techniques first. Yeah. Right? Like, on the bottom, learn enough to stand up. Yeah. And minimum.
In my opinion, they should learn how to fight off their back.
Yeah. But in the beginning, I'm thinking of comfort, right? Like they're not going to want to be in their back mostly, right? So like, okay, let's play to your assets, right? Play top positions, learn control, learn how to get off your back safely without getting choked, and then start forcing them to learn all the aspects of the ground. Yeah. Learn how to, you know, play a half guard, how to Z guard, a pose guard. You know, like you have to learn all these things, and I think as the job of every professional athlete to be exposed to every facet of the game. Like that's why, to me, when I see somebody who's been training 20 years and like, oh, John Jones just got his blue belt, it's like, what?
It's just for headlines. We're looking for a headline.
Yeah. Like, huh? You know, like, man, like we got guys got amateurs. They're not even fighting that they're black belts in like 5-10 years, and you're a professional and you don't put the time into learning everything about this sport. It's like being a football player not knowing all the rules. It's like, how are you playing football for a living and you don't know every
it's
rule
crazy.
possible?
It's crazy. You That's where a good coach comes in, by the way. A good head coach does that, exactly that. I think another reason I just like thought of this is like, it's like blasphemy for a wrestler to be on his back. So the fighting off your back to them is just like, no, I don't want to learn any of that to me, because it's so, it's almost like an ideology in some ways. Like, you have to be on top versus like looking at things from a different perspective and going, I'm going to end up on bottom, or this may be a tool I may have to use one day, which happens to everyone at some point in their career is going to be on their back,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
And it's crazy how they don't know how to stand back up. I was just commenting for PFL last night, and a lot of Russians, a lot of Dagestani, very, very successful, very well-rounded everywhere, except one place. You put them on their backs, and they're like a turtle with their belly up to the sky. Like, they don't know how to move. Like, no shrimping, everything is bridging, giving the back. When they get on the fence, every single one of them gives the back away. And I'm like, man, like, what, you think that would spend, because I think they have that wrestling sambo background, like, there's no way I'm going to be underneath you, right? So they never spend enough time training that, right? And I just don't, I would be terrified of going into a fight not knowing how to put my hands up. Yeah. Oh, I'm a grappler, I'm just going to shoot. Even if I could take 99.9% of people down with my first shot, I would still want to know how to put my hands up.
100%.
But then I'm not going to learn that particular skill though, because I don't like it, This is what discipline is, and we've talked about this before. Discipline is not doing what you like. Discipline is doing what you hate, right? Like, if you like to play video games all day, you play 8 hours a day. It does not make you a disciplined video game player, right? Yeah. I play 8 hours a day. That's not discipline. Discipline is running sprints 6 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's uphill. Like, maybe some people like that. I
think, just doing what needs to be done.
Yes, doing what needs to be done. And if that includes learning a skill set that you don't like, that's, once again, this is where a good head coach comes in. A good coach is going to tell you this is what you're doing, which is a huge problem in MMA. More than BJJ, I feel like, where the fighter is running the camp. It's the weirdest dynamic. Yeah. But it's kind of because they have the money. So it's what happens is that they run the camp, not the coach.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I think we talked about it before. It's like the pyramid is upside down.
Yeah.
In my mind, the way the power structure in MMA should be coaches, athletes, promotions.
Yes.
Right? Coaches at the top, why? They're generally the guys with the most experience. They've fought, they've coached, they've been all around, so they understand how the game works, and they're teaching the game to the next generation, which is the fighters. Fighters, should be vied by the promotions, right? Like, promotions should be fighting to get these athletes because we need them to make our show successful. But the reality is, promotions are at the top, fighters in the middle, and then coaches in the bottom, right? Because the money is at the top.
That's so true.
Guys like the Dana White has made the UFC.
He's the boss. Yeah.
The boss man. And essentially the fighters have to pour themselves out to get a spot on the show. Yeah. Even that show. Who Wants to Be a Fighter? I always get the name wrong. Dana White, the Fight Night, whatever the thing is, but
I can't keep up. Yeah, I think he had a TV show for that.
Yeah. It's like you want to fight, or I forget it, but like you pretty much have to go balls out trying to win a fight to impress him. Like, you can't just win the fight. It's not enough. It's like you have to go. When did this become like a show to pander to you? It should be about like winning my fight to the best of my ability.
Because you got to remember the UFC, and here's the thing: the difference between something that is run to be a show versus a sport.
Yeah.
Because it leans on the pro business side.
Yes.
So now we have a new belt. You hear about that one? Like, what do you call it?
Bad motherfucker belt or something.
I thought it's a joke, right? I thought it was a meme or something. It's a joke. No, they're dead serious about it.
Yeah, they showed the belt, and apparently The Rock is going to be the one giving the belt out at the end.
And like, it just shows like, to me, it's like we're believing this. Like, it's to me, it's strange, man, because you have all this credibility, all these, everything to build something up, and it's kind of like, let's just throw that credibility out the window because we're going to make more money if we lose this credibility. I would rather have the credibility, but I think at some point the priorities get turned around. It's like, just let's maximize profits. And business is very sociopathic like that. Anyone who's run a business knows this. Like, you maximize profit. If you own a corporation, you're looking at shareholders. That's the only thing you care about. You're not looking at you don't look at environment. You don't look at workers, right? You don't look at if this guy has 8 kids at home and if you can feed them or not. There's no other value. It's just about money. Money is the only thing and from a business perspective, that makes perfect sense. But as a martial artist, as a fan of the sport, I lean towards being idealistic in the sense where the credentials, the credibility that UFC has gained as having the toughest fighters in the world, the best fighters in history are in UFC. You ever think about that?
Yeah.
Like you put them with the best fighter in ancient times, and they get killed.
Yeah.
You put Bruce Lee in an amateur event here, and Bruce Lee will get mopped.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, fans, but it's true.
Yeah. It's
my blue belts would smoke Bruce Lee in a fight. And it's not Bruce Lee's fault.
Yeah.
It's just that the thing is that the sport has evolved so much. So we have all these amazing fighters and these amazing skills, and we kind of lean towards turning the whole thing into a circus because we make more money that way, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it loses some of the shine. It's like
for sure it does, right? And the whole point of having the rankings and having fights being sanctioned is to create credibility and also to give people accountability of knowing where they're at and what their place is in the top of the sport, right? Because you have the champion and then who's coming up to be the next contender.
Yeah.
But when you can have, like, pretty much Brock Lesnar can fight for the title whenever he wants. If Brock Lesnar says, I want to come back and fight for the heavyweight title, boom.
Conor could too.
Instantly, right?
He could talk his way into fighting for the title right now.
And that is, again, the merit to the sport, because now it's like, well, the guy who just fought to get that number one contender spot, worthless, right?
With Floyd Mayweather, you think he can fight for the UFC title tomorrow if you want to do? In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. This is negotiated.
It would be one tweet.
And see, when you say, oh, it makes sense business-wise, I disagree a bit, right? Because I think, sure, if you do
short term, maybe I meant
short term,
yes. Okay, yeah.
Because short term that works, right? And what happens is most people, if you're a CEO or whatnot, your term is generally not that long, right? Like, what, you're going to be a CEO for 5 years or something like that. You don't have to think outside of that.
No.
Right? I just got to think, how am I going to look good and make this company very profitable within my time span?
Yes.
Yeah. I destroy the environment. I do, these crappy deals which are going to fall apart in 10 years. That's okay. I'm out in 5. You know? So I think it's short-term victories that they're getting by ruining their credibility and whatnot. Long-term, it's going to hurt. Yeah, if you destroy the environment, you have nowhere to live. You're dead now.
Yeah, but we're human. We don't think
right.
20 years ahead.
Right, exactly.
Alone,
but they keep saying, it's not my problem.
Yeah, it's exactly how. Yeah, that's why I said business is sociopathic like that, because everything is not my problem. I'm making more money. But you're right about the short-term thing. Because I believe this. We are opinion makers, right? Like me as an instructor,
sure.
as someone who has some influence in the martial arts world, right? We form opinions. We are also hardcore fans. When did you start watching UFC?
Yeah,
98, 93. Okay, I started in 97, 98, right? So I'm a latecomer when it comes to UFC fans, right? Because you're right, so some people started at 93, 94, and they've been following the sport this whole time. Our opinion is valuable, but the average fan, which is the vast majority of UFC's money, like the short term, right? They will switch over to NASCAR just like that. For them, it's a flip of a button. They go, you know what? I had it with this UFC thing. I'm just going to watch NASCAR and football and baseball or whatever, right? We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're the hardcore fans that,
exactly.
20 years from now, we're still going to be not only buying UFC and watching it. Granted, I don't watch it very much these days. But we form opinions because people come to us. Like my white belt's like, what do you think of that fight? And whatever I say becomes, whether it's true or not or valid or not, they're going to believe me because I have credibility with them, right? And I think that they lose the hardcore fan base, and the UFC has done that a lot.
Oh, I know for sure.
I'm kind of like, come on, guys. They keep getting title fights at these guys that don't deserve it. I'm like, you know what, man? There's a part of me that doesn't even want to watch it because I feel they're losing their fan base.
I was just talking to someone yesterday who's been in it as long as I have, and he's like, I don't watch UFCs anymore. Too many shenanigans.
Yeah.
He just looks at clips that show
I'll
up.
watch highlights.
Yeah, but that's it. He doesn't tune in.
I think Instagram ruined it for the UFC too, because you put a 1 minute amazing highlight, and that's all I want to see. Sports in general. I've never seen a football game in my life. True story. I have never watched a football game from beginning to end because it's just. But I'll watch the highlights.
Yeah.
But 4 hours on my Sunday, there's no way you can take 4 hours out of my Sunday, sit down and watch a game. I respect people who do. I'm just but I like the highlights. I think the Instagram kind of ruined it for the UFC.
Yeah, it makes it really easy. Yeah. I'll tell you, I haven't watched any other sport since I was. The last time I remember watching football was with Dan Marino.
I'd heard a name.
Yeah, so Dan Marino was a NFL quarterback from the Miami Dolphins.
When?
Probably in the 90s.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I remember because my dad would watch it, so it was a
family thing.
We all watched it. But then I remember when Marino retired, it's like, oh, no reason to watch football anymore. And I never watched any other sports since then.
Yeah.
And when once I started watching the UFC, like again, like when Royce Gracie first entered, I saw that. I never watched any other sport. Like I don't get it personally. Like people who spend like all their time watching football, they tailgate. Yeah, it's amazing. But like I don't know, like I like MMA a lot and wrestling and grappling because I do it.
Yes.
I'm a participant in it, so I can appreciate it more.
And on a very deep level, too.
Yeah.
Because you understand everything. Sometimes fighters get injured, and like, we know he's really hurt. And sometimes I've seen this happen. This happened like last night. Like this Brazilian guy got kicked in the nuts 3 times in one fight.
Jesus.
Now, the third time, it was like it barely touched, right?
Yeah.
And then the crowd is booing, like he's faking it. Like he just got kicked. Within a 5-minute span, he got kicked twice. His nuts are so sensitive now. Yeah. I mean, if you can just touch him and it hurt. So, yes, he's in pain. We understand this because we know pain accumulates, right? But a fan that's never been hit before in his life doesn't understand these things. So you can understand fighting from a much deeper perspective than the average fan. That's what the average fan misses out on.
Yeah, and that's like for me. I can't really relate to other sports. Like I watch it, it's just it's boring. I'm like, this is awful. Like I don't know. I don't think any other sports is exciting in fighting. But that's opinionated, of course. But there's so much going on in a fight. Whereas like if you look at even a game of football, which is pretty dynamic, there's a lot of lulls in the action. Like everybody's got to get set. You have like 45 seconds between each play.
I know that's the part that drives me nuts, man. It's the breaks. It does. At least with rugby and soccer, like I feel like I can watch a whole game nonstop. With football, it stops, stats, commercials, 20 seconds of play, then 30-second break, stats, commercial.
Yeah.
It's like I feel that 4 hours of game, you're actually really watching 1 hour. The other 3 are like stats, commercials, and listen to people talk. So I don't know, man. Like I don't get it. I'm exactly like I remember the last professional game I've ever seen in my life was in 2006. I'll never forget. I was in Brazil. I was watching the World Cup. Brazil was losing to France 2-0. People in Brazil are committing suicide over this, man. Like it's a big deal over there, man. They're fanatics, right? And I'm disappointed too. I'm like, come on, like. And then I look at the expression of everyone around me, and they're all like almost crying. Everyone's like panicking. And then I remember the moment. I remember the player too. It's called Roberto Carlos. He's a very good player at the time, and he's jogging in the field. And he's kind of like smiling, like he don't give a shit. Yeah. And then I'm like, this guy doesn't care. He's a millionaire. He doesn't care. And that's when I realized if the player doesn't care about the game, like why should I? And that was the moment when I kind of fell out of love with professional sports, and I haven't seen a game since. And the UFC, in some ways, is kind of leaning towards like money corrupts everything. I feel like the more the sport has grown, it's been better because now you can make a living from it, and that's been great. But at the same time, I feel like it's corrupted a lot. To me, it was like the two warriors. Yes, like I am very in sync with the Japanese in this regard. I've always liked Pride more than UFC, right? Because there was an element of respect there in the crowd that I have never seen in the UFC.
Yeah, when we got involved, at least when I did, there was no money in this at all, and but we did it because you just had something to prove. Yeah. It was an honor thing, right? It's like, all right, let's just go out there and see who's the toughest guy. That's what the original UFCs were all about, and that's the spirit that I got into it. So it is great. I love that there's now money in the sport and people can make a living, but it does sap a little bit of the passion that some people have behind it.
Yeah.
And understandably, because they don't need to. You're not hungry, right?
Yeah.
So I think it does take away from that a bit. Obviously, there's still guys out there that are savages, and they'll just think guys like Cowboy, he fights on like a day's notice. You know what I mean? Like that guy he's out there just to bang.
I really respect people who do that because I mean, for me to do something, it have to be a ridiculous amount of money. Like, and I still lean toward, I guess, like I really admire people that can take a fight like that. Yeah. Like 2-3 days notice, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's a gamer right there.
Yeah, like the guy likes to fight.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
likes to fight. But again, like sometimes I've been in fights in the streets and I didn't get paid. And that was like a minute, like not even a minute notice. It's crazy how that is, right? Yeah. I would be willing to kill myself on concrete with a stranger, if it came down to it, over not being paid at all, risking going to prison, ruining your life, going to, all these terrible things. But like 2 days notice in a professional fight in a safe and somewhat safe environment where you're getting paid all that. Like, I don't want to do that. It's funny how that works.
It's just the psychology behind it. I think a lot of people don't realize how that's what makes fighting so tough, right? Because a street fight, there isn't any preparation, right? You just
it's a rage thing. It's a failure of reason. That's what
someone,
it is. Yeah.
Someone bumped into you the wrong way, or I mean, those are ego battles. But sometimes a guy's just trying to mug you, and he's going to kill you if you don't give the money, and you have to defend yourself, right? But there's no planning, there's no forethought. It just happens.
Yeah.
But when you say, it's very different when you have that. Even in school, everybody's had that happen to them in school, right? Someone bully picked on you, and you fought him right there, right? Yeah. Versus the time go, oh, me and you are gonna fight in the playground at 5 p.m. tomorrow in front of all your buddies.
Yeah.
That's a very different situation.
It's a very different situation.
It's a very different situation compared to the spur of the moment of the fight.
Yes, yeah. I completely agree.
So that's what fighting is, but just on a much higher scale in the sense that the stakes are higher. And so I think that's what makes it so difficult, because you have all the time and you're thinking, oh my God, this is going to happen. This could happen. This could happen. This could happen. You're thinking of all the little possibilities, like what can go wrong.
The what ifs.
And that just blows your brain away. You know?
It's incredibly difficult when you think about it. I really struggled with that. Like knowing, like fighting with a set time, like you're going to fight on the 23rd at 7 p.m. It's like, holy cow. All of a sudden, where it's like, if it's spontaneous, it's so much easier. But that's why everyone's tough when it comes spontaneous, But it's a very difficult thing mentally. I struggled with that. It was very hard for me. Like I forced myself to do it. And I'm very proud of that because it was so difficult. I remember well how hard it was for me to create the courage to step into the cage. Like I remember like the feeling vividly, like how difficult it was, right? So I'm proud of the fact that I overcame that, but you kind of overcome it. I think I can do it to some degree with Mike Musumeci did. You just move it out of the way, like it's an object, like anxiety is just something you can like put in a drawer and keep away. And it's a very difficult thing to deal with. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, it just depends, I guess, on how you frame like for me, it got easy towards the end. I just enjoyed the opportunity. Yeah. I guess because I didn't get to compete as much towards the end stages of my career. So I looked forward to the opportunity. It's like, oh, now is my time to shine. Yeah. So I always tell my fighters that, like this is the moment you worked for. Sometimes you could forget that you choose to step in the cage. Yeah. And the fact that it is a cage, it kind of feels like you're being forced. And there's a little procession and you're being funneled in there. If you don't have a reflection, like, damn, like, no, but you chose that walk. This is
you've been dreaming about it. You've been dreaming about it. The thing is, people often dream of the reward, not the process.
Yeah.
And the trick to anything, to being good at anything in life, is enjoying the process itself, the journey, right? Not the end. So when you look at jiu-jitsu as a means to an end, you're often doing it for the wrong reasons, or fighting in general. Yeah. Once you fall in love with the journey, the end is it's a consequence. Like you don't even think about it. You're just like, people like, oh, I want to be a UFC champion in 5 years. I think that's a horrible way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
I want to be the best guy in the gym right now, tomorrow. Like, what do I have to do? And then it's a more realistic, hands-on approach. And I think a lot of people miss out on that. They want to skip that. What they really want is the reward, the recognition, the money.
Want to win.
Which is nice, of course. Yeah. But the most successful people I've ever met in my life, they were really, really focused on living in the moment, and just like being better right now, not thinking too far ahead.
My brother had this great analogy, and he would tell people before they're going to compete, he goes, look, imagine that I have a crystal ball and I'm able to look into it. And I go, Robert, I see your match tomorrow. You're going to lose. Are you still going to fight?
That's a good point.
Right? To me, yeah. I want to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
So like
it's a very good way of looking at it. I never thought about that because it kind of removes you might lose and that's okay. Yeah. You still want to do it.
Because like for me when he posed the question to me, I'm like, yeah. Like I didn't hesitate. Like I'm like I want to fight still. I want to know why I lost. How come? Like
I change my fate?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't challenge your fate.
Maybe I'm gonna challenge it. Right. Yeah. But like the point is, if I did lose, I wouldn't be like, oh well, I'm gonna learn from that experience. Yeah. But like I feel like if I put that question on somebody and they say no, I'm not gonna fight, then maybe fighting's not for you, because it's a 50-50 probability you're going to lose at some point.
Statistically, yeah.
Right? And over time, those odds get higher, So if you can't even accept the possibility of losing, or that, I don't know, I feel like you're going to get crushed. Like there's people who lose and they fall apart. Like, I mean, Ronda Rousey was never the same after one loss. Just completely fell apart.
Yeah, when Ronda Rousey, she just hated the show business. You can see it. Her interviews, she was just like grumpy. She like, get me out of here. She could see, she's like, she did not like the attention. Even though it was a weird with her. Like, she craved it, but at the same time, she had like a love-hate relationship with it.
She's in WWE now, so she's in the game. You know, I don't know.
It's hard to say no to that kind of money, I guess. But
I think
like, she
a lot of pressure.
Irritated with reporters and fans like all the time. Yeah. I've seen like, I remember interviews of her. She's like being a total bitch, like, get me out of here. Like, she did not want to be there. Probably overworked too. I think the UFC kind of spread her a little too thin, because she was like the big draw at one point.
Yeah,
you know, like,
she was.
I think it was the only time in the history of maybe combat where a woman was the biggest draw for sales in sport. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't think of any other.
Still is the biggest female celebrity that the MMA world has produced
by far. No one's come close.
Yeah,
but I think that she was but when she was the biggest name of the UFC at the time, I think she was selling more than everyone else, wasn't she?
I'm not sure what her numbers were, but like, at least from a brand recognition, she was famous outside of the sport, right? Yeah. There's few people that have done that. Conor is one of them, right? And you have Ronda Rousey is one of them. Like, you can just go to the random guy or random person. You go, do you know Ronda Rousey?
Yeah.
They don't know.
They don't know.
I would bet Maia. 9 out of 10 they would know. Same thing with Conor, but like a guy like Demian Maia, no, they wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You know, Tyron Woodley, they wouldn't know.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, but there's some people like the Diaz brothers.
Maybe.
I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of big chunks. Maybe 50% of people.
Yeah. You know, so like, there's few people who transcend outside in our sport. Although that seems to be growing now. Now you have, I mean, it's crazy with Masvidal, right? He's been fighting since 2003. Nobody knew who he was like a year ago.
That's true. I just heard of him the first time. Yeah, very recently.
To me, it was so weird because, I mean, George started off with me back. He was the first MMA gym. It was with me and my brother for like 5 years or so. And he has the same personality as he does now. But like, for whatever reason, he couldn't find a voice. You know, and like, once he moved, like, he went to ATT and he's still with a big camp. You know, like, maybe, we weren't big enough, but he still didn't get a voice there. Nobody cared about him. But then all of a sudden, one big win with Darren Till, the little back scene scuffle, now he's a superstar.
Yeah, like, it's weird how that happens. I don't fully understand. Like,
I don't get it either, because like, it wasn't like, he changed his personality. He's the same kid.
And he's just as good. Like, I mean, he's not like overnight he became like spectacular, skilled fighter.
I mean, he did have two of the best wins he's ever had as far as the fashion. I mean, he's knocked out other people. Like, he knocked out Yves Edwards with a head kick, which was crazy. You know, Yves Edwards is an amazing kickboxer himself. And he's got some other big wins, but I guess it's just the timing of things. You know, it's weird how that works. But like, you know, like, because I always thought, man, this kid's going to be a star. And then, you know, like 10 years later, I'm like, man, he still hasn't, I mean, he's fighting the UFC and he's making some money, but he's still not a star yet. I'm like, damn, he just doesn't, I don't know what's missing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what's the factor? And then that Darren Till thing brought him up, and then Ben Askren just pushed him over the moon.
Yeah.
You know? To the point where he's fighting for a made-up title.
It's a made-up title. Yeah, you're right.
There's nobody else that can claim that.
Is there a weight class in that title? How does that work? I don't understand.
I don't know, but like, it's kind of an honorable thing for him. Him and Nate Diaz, they're fighting for an imaginary title that's never happened in the history of any sport, I think, where they just made up a random title.
Motherfucker. Like, is that?
Yeah, like, did that happen in boxing, or like they just made up a new divisional title? Like, no, like.
I have no idea how they're gonna run that. How do you earn a title fight for that title, and in what weight? Does it have to be a specific? I don't understand how that's going to work.
I have no idea why they spent like $50,000 on making the belt, supposedly, which seems.
Oh, that's a drop. Like, Dana White spends that much.
It's a drop in the bucket, but it seems like, what the hell they're putting in this thing? Like, I don't think the regular titles are worth that much.
Yeah,
I kind of be jealous if I was a champ.
You can get someone to charge a lot for something that's not worth that much. I suppose,
sure,
but,
you know. But like, if I was the champ, I'd be like, what the hell? Like, I want that belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How is that going to work long term? I don't know.
It's really confusing.
Sure they thought it. I hope they thought it through.
It's really confusing. But I think that, I guess the point I was driving home is that he became like a overnight sensation.
Yeah.
To the point where they made a belt for a division that he could potentially win. So like, hats off to him that he stuck in for a long. It's a long time to be in the fight game, like 16 years.
Oh, he deserves it. If
Yeah,
he's that long.
That's
like his Chael Sonnen too. Like he was always good, but he was like one of the first to start the trash talking. I think he might have been the first in MMA to really push it, and he blew up after the trash talking, but he found his voice.
Yeah,
and I think sometimes like he had the personality, it was there. He didn't think he could use it, or someone maybe like, hey man, like maybe a manager steered him in that direction, or maybe one day he just goes, you know what, I'm just gonna be me. I'm gonna say it and screw it, But it changed his career dramatically.
Oh yeah.
Right, and that happens. I think some people, they just need to, find that little key little component that's missing. Because I think there are a lot of Masvidals out there, like
for
people
sure.
that are very skilled, but they deserve so much more. I would go back to like ADCC when Kimura actually complained after he won. And if you saw that, he was like, "What else do I have to do?" When it's true, like, what else does a guy have to do when you think about it? Like he's probably out of all the champions the most accomplished one in a lot of ways, because he's done gi, no gi, and MMA very successfully.
Yeah.
Like who else has done that? Hard. I can't think of anyone else that.
No, I memean, besides Demian and Maia, maybe.
Yeah. No, Demian did it very successfully. But like, I think he's just right there.
Yeah.
Even like, Kinu's jiu-jitsu career was more successful than Damian's, even though Demian has made it further in MMA. But it's, not a lot of guys. It's a hard thing to do.
For sure.
But for some reason, maybe because he's like doesn't speak English fluently, or maybe because he's a lightweight, or because. It's hard to, like Bruno Malfacini and IBJJF, right? He's at 10, 11 world title. I can't keep up. He's the most successful competitor in history when you think about it, right? He doesn't get even near the recognition that Leandro Loa and Buchecha get, for example.
Yeah.
Or, Keenan or someone. They just, and it's crazy because like it's nothing to do with his technique. It's just it's like there's no voice.
Yeah. It's unfortunate but it's a reality, right? That we don't reward people based on their merit nearly as much compared to their ability to market themselves, right? And just their general social ability, you know what I mean? Because you're right. I'm sure we went to Brazil, we would find some badass guy that nobody's ever heard of, and he's just practicing diligently, and nobody knows who he is. You know? And you can do that in pretty much any sport in the U.S. There's probably some guy in the basketball court playing pickup games that could destroy people. It's just nobody has seen him yet, or he doesn't have the opportunity to be seen. That's the one thing that I think that's great about social media. It's giving people this opportunity, right? Like before, how are you going to get picked up by a major network? You need to
be friends with the right people.
You need to be friends with the right people. You need to be seen. You need to get on and you see people back in the day when they were filming the news, they're trying to jump in, start doing the little show, get their screen time. Nowadays, you don't need that. Like, I don't even have cable news anymore. I do everything online.
Yeah.
So,
most people.
So now let's just get your Instagram channel, right? Start filming and hope that
it's made information very democratic, and it raises all these questions about democracy too, because if the expression from freedom and democracy is everything else that came with that freedom, it's like, that speaks volumes of human nature, right? Like, is that really who we are? Because I feel the internet is mostly used in negative ways. It's got the potential, social media has the potential to be, I find my high school friends, that's great. What you're describing, that's great too. But again, you get some of the worst of what people have to offer too. It's almost like, I think in a lot of ways, social media, the internet in general it's a window into human nature. Like what is the most searched thing on Google? We can find these things out. Like what's the most searched man and woman, or the most searched book?
Yeah, you can see
bought book. You can find these things out, and that right there is like, okay, that's who people are, right? And to me, that's a scary, scary thought. I'm like, that's who we are. Fuck, are you serious?
Well, it's not surprising, right? Like I think the number one search thing is pornography, right?
Yeah, that one I think is surprising. Yeah. But the ratings for like the Kardashian show is like, no, you got to be kidding me. Not that many people watch that show. No, that's impossible. Nope, that's the case.
It's funny because there was a meme that was showing different businesses and how long it took them to get 1 million customers, right? And it was like AT&T, X amount of years, this, blah, and there was like Pornhub, 18 minutes, 30 seconds.
Oh no, it's the number one thing. It's funny too. Like, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but like I've heard from like internet marketers and people that are really like tech savvy that porn has been leading the trend on the internet for decades, like since the whole thing started. Everything porn does, like people follow. There's sales for, man, like everything. If you want to find out what's going on the internet, you go to a Pornhub, and what they're doing is what all the other platforms, or not just porn, like everything else, will be following the next few years, because they got the biggest audience, so they probably have the biggest audience.
They have the most traffic, and you're talking about they're also dealing with video data, which is very heavy. As far as like
they know their business,
the bandwidth that they're going to need, and then you also have security issues. They can't be leaking out stuff like that. They're a legitimate site, so it's pretty wild. It's funny, but it's kind of, you say, it's not surprising, right? Because the ultimate goal of everything is sex, pretty much at the end of the day. So of course, pornography is going to be. But it's funny because if you ask the average person, they're going to say, what? What's that?
Of course, But but it is it is a peek into that. And just going back to what I was saying, like it was, I think that the Neil deGrasse Tyson, he had a TV show about the cosmos, and it went 2 seasons, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So speaking of cosmos, you got the stars.
But isn't that crazy though? Like when you think about it, here you have like a great mind with a great topic, something super interesting.
And he's an entertaining guy
but
too.
He's a very witty guy. He's funny. I feel like I should have watched both seasons. I didn't. I don't have the time. But I would watch it right over the Jersey Shore. But like you look at the ratings, and I guarantee you they're not even close. So that's the scary part to me about like the internet, because I think it's a reality check for like, hey man, that's really what is out there. That's how people are.
Well,
and I include I'm not trying to say that. But we're a part of that, one way or another. It's who we are, all of us.
And it kind of exposes you to other bubbles, if you will, right? What happens is, like, if you are in a certain camp, like we're like health athletes, sports, we're in this particular bubble, and we wouldn't normally see outside of this, right? Like if we didn't have TV or internet, we wouldn't know a world outside of that. It's kind of like almost living on an island in a native tribe. But internet essentially exposes you to other cultures and worlds that you would never, ever interact with.
True.
And they seem so foreign. And you're like, what the hell is it? People do that? Like, I see stuff, I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, the thing that blows my mind away, like, is these people who, like, do that, like smashing dances. I know you've seen it, like you'll see, like, this big black girl jump on top of a dude and, like, pile drive. And they do this crazy stuff. I'm like, that looks painful.
Have you ever seen Surra de Bunda?
No.
It's a Brazilian dance they had. So imagine a guy sitting down like this on the floor, right?
Yeah.
And then this girl with a big fat ass, like, will put her, like, shins and ankles on your shoulders and her hands on the ground, like in a push-up position. And then she pushes her ass back and forth into your face and hits you in the face with her ass. And the guys are just, like, lining up for this. Like, it's a big line of dudes just, like, ready to get, like, beat up by the big ass.
It's something like that.
It's hilarious, but, like, it's like, what is this?
I'm looking at that. I'm like, what planet am I on? Like, this doesn't look like a good time to me. But that's the thing. Like,
we're definitely entertained. I'll give it like this. We've never been more entertained. Like, it's not. I mean, like people talk about like the circus and bread and how the Romans had it. I'm like, Romans knew nothing about entertainment. Like, we make them look like they're white belts.
We've been doing some really crazy stuff. I guess that's kind of how mixed martial arts came to be, in a sense. We had these different worlds, like karate and taekwondo and jiu-jitsu, all meeting, and something amazing came out of it.
That,
You know what I mean? Like, now we have MMA, and I think it's an amazing display of collaboration between all these different styles and finding out how they fit together.
Yeah, and I just thought of this, but I think that MMA in a lot of ways is an expression of something that is much bigger than MMA. It's an expression of globalization. Because what you end up with, what is MMA if not the amalgamation of all these little bubbles?
Yeah.
So all these little bubbles came together and they created, okay, this is the best form of fighting ever created, right? It's called MMA. But imagine how that happens in other cultural aspects, not just fighting.
Yeah.
That happens with technology. That happens. I think that the tendency is for us as, like, in the world, become more and more alike because of this, because we are turning into a village.
Yeah.
It is a village in a lot of ways. It's just a village with a lot of people. But I think that if we're around 200 years from now, I think that everyone's going to speak in like one main language. It may be English, Mandarin, or something else, but I think the whole world will speak one language, will be unified eventually, because that's what happens once, you turn it into a village. People have to agree on the languages, because it's happened in a lot of ways already. My Brazilian friends who never learned how to speak English, their profile on their Instagram is in English, not in Portuguese. How interesting is that?
Yeah.
English has become the language of globalization. And I think that will happen with other, like fashion. Think about fashion. That's why traveling, like when Marco Polo did, it would have been far more interesting. Imagine being Marco Polo making it to China.
Yeah.
That's a cultural shock right there.
For
That's
sure.
like going to a different planet. Whereas when I travel now, everyone speaks English. Everyone dresses the exact same way. They have the same cars, the same customs. The food is, a lot of times is the same, especially even in Vegas.
Similar, yeah.
It's the shopping malls are exactly the same. The stuff I buy is more and more similar. We have the main brands like Nike and Reebok are in every store. So the world is becoming more and more alike. And even though it's, it's a direct consequence of this globalization, but at the same time, it's like becoming less interesting.
I was going to say, I am against globalization. I think of course, we want integration with everybody, and we want to be able to have open routes of information exchange. But I feel you lose some of the diversity if everybody is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And because then that means we're also all thinking the exact same way.
Yeah.
Which will make it much harder to get unique viewpoints and new ideas that are outside of the box.
Yeah.
So that's why when people say, "Oh, we should," I guess that's why people who follow the one world order type thing. They're scared of that. To me, that's one of the fears about that. It's just you're just going to have everybody thinking exactly the same.
Oh, it's happening. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's the tendency of any village, right? Yeah. Is for it to have one leader, one alpha, and that's always been. I think in 100 years from now, there's going to be one corporation on the planet. We're not going to have Apple, Google, and Facebook. Eventually, there's going to be one major corporation. That will be like the most successful form of imperialism ever devised. Because how do you topple that?
This thing here, you remember we were just talking about it? Google sent me an email this morning. They bought it.
Google just bought it. Yeah.
So,
that's what's going to happen. Like you have one corporation,
$2.3 billion or something like that. So now, Google also knows about my heart rate, where I'm at.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then imagine like what Julius Caesar would have, if you could explain the power of Google or Amazon, or Apple, any of these companies, to Julius Caesar. He would have been like what kind of power? Like it's so beyond anything any emperor has ever accomplished throughout history. It is so far beyond, right? And we don't see it that way because we don't see it from a historical perspective. But when you really put it like that, that's what we're talking about.
For sure.
I think government power, like there's this whole wave in politics about get government out of your life and get government out of your life. No one wants government in their life. I don't want to pay my taxes. And you got to really be careful with this because really what you're saying is when you create that power vacuum, it's really what you're doing. You're removing whatever is left of democracy and the republic, and you leave this power, right? Who's going to fill that gap, that void? Well, the private sector, right? Big corporations. So you end up with a world where, the private sector, which you are not accountable to your opinion unless you're a shareholder. So unless you're a shareholder, your opinion means nothing to them. As a consumer, yes, but their decisions of who, what the rules of labor are in Vietnam and China doesn't really matter to them, right? As long as you're buying their products. But you end up with this very distorted, thing, the world where the power is so concentrated that it's kind of scary, man, when you think about it, because empires of the past pale in comparison to what we're witnessing at the moment as far as control, power, and overall wealth.
I think it's just once again an example of a distorted concentration of power. Like I was talking about the MMA pyramid. Well, at least the pyramid of society now is people are at the bottom, and then it's like corporations are probably on top of government.
Yeah, they're buying. They bought the government's sold.
Right. Yeah. Sector, so it's a kind of a blurred line because government can do something that could cripple.
Yeah.
But by the token, then those people are not getting the power they want and the lobbying. So it's weird. But anyways, I don't think our forefathers were seeing it that way. I was seeing people would be at the top of this power structure. You know what I mean? And they gave power to government.
Corporations became a person. Yeah. And once you do that, they have the same rights as you. It's like so I can outdo you then, because now that we're the same. If I have more money than you, then technically, now I'm outrank you. And I think that's kind of what opened Pandora's box when they did that. It's like now corporations are people, right? Have the rights but not the obligations.
Yeah.
So how do you lose that game? All the rights, not the obligations. Right. So.
No, it's pretty wild. Yeah, and those shell companies that went, like, I don't know. I think we talked about it a while back. How Yoel Romero, he had won a settlement. I don't know, even know, but he got caught with a drug test that he popped for whatever reason. He said it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And then they checked the supplements. Turns out it was one of the supplements was tainted.
Yeah.
And he sued and won like a settlement of like $17 million or whatnot. And I was like, dude, that's crazy, you know. But I did some research afterwards. Someone pointed out to me that he didn't actually get the money. It was just he won the award, but it was never paid because the company, it was a shell company, and essentially it was there just to take the blame. So people are saying this is actually, he did cheat. It's just that he was, I guess his handlers were very creative and making sure that he was protected if he did get caught. You know? So
also, like, the people that created the company were on his side.
Yeah.
Wow. That's man. See, sometimes I think I'm smart, and I'm like, I hear this stuff, and I'm like, man, I've never have thought of something like that. That's crazy.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly, yeah,
Allegedly.
but I believe at that level, like, imagine the machinations that go on when it comes to hiding your money and paying less tax at the highest level, right? All these financial tricks to, really, which I understand. Everyone wants to keep their money. No one likes to pay taxes and everything, but if the Republic is not there to defend the rights of people and do what's best for the people as a whole, not for individuals, at some point, I think as a society we fail.
Yeah,
it's become too much about what is best for, like, I think some of these guys are paying like 15-20% in taxes a year. It's like they get away with it, all these like little tricks, that me and you, I mean, I don't have the power to do that. I don't have the knowledge to be able to do that. My accountant is not that skilled, but at the highest level, they get away with it, man. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, because it's not a very fair system.
No, like when you have like, I forget how big the tax code is, but it's a ridiculous document. You know what I mean? Like, I think they have that meme where it says like it's a conversation between a citizen and the government. He goes, "Okay, so you want me to pay taxes?" He goes, "How much?" Because you have to figure it out. What happens if I don't figure it out? You go to jail. Like, oh, but you know the amount. So it's silly. But anyhow.
Complicated, man. But anyway, we're all over the place today, man.
Yeah, we went.
Me and Dave, we started the show today, and we're gonna go. What are we gonna talk about? Like, let's talk about the Demian, Maia, Ben Askren. We'll go from there. We end up talking about tax brackets.
Yeah, let's loop back to him real quick before we sign off. So with Ben, I wanted Ben to win. Not in that particular matchup, I kind of did, but I wanted Ben to be successful in the UFC in general, because I thought it would be great, because it would give power to ONE FC, and it would then set up a paradigm like, well, maybe the best athletes aren't all in the UFC.
Yeah.
And they're not the only game in town.
Yeah.
So it was my hope that Ben would go do well in the UFC. But it turns out it's been mired.
Yeah.
He had a controversial win over Robbie Lawler, which I thought he was going to win, but I mean, it is steeped in controversy. Then he gets that knockout with Masvidal, and which launches his career, and then he gets run into Maia and gets beat. And these are not guys who suck, but it kind of does show their argument. Well, ONE FC doesn't really have that level of talent compared to the UFC. And this guy goes into the UFC as this undefeated guy from Bellator and ONE FC and can't even, break through the top.
Well, the thing is, I think that when every athlete, I don't know how Ben is now, how old he is, and how long he's been fighting, but like, we think that, okay, you get to a skill level and like it's to see how you are for the rest of your life, and it's not like that. All these factors like motivation and like injuries and age and like where your heart is throughout your career, and like people ask me all the time, Robert, why don't you fight?
Yeah.
Well, so and so is your age and he's still fighting, or so and so is older than you, he's still fighting. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
This is a simple answer. I don't want to. Like, well, you should. I say, like, no, I don't. I don't have to. Why don't you?
Yeah.
Why don't you go fight MMA? Why don't you go fight MMA? Yeah, exactly. It's not. And I think these things change over time. Because like 5 years ago, what I'm saying now is blasphemy. You quit, or like, no, my heart changed. Like I'm very interested in other things now. To me, like other things that I do today are more interesting than MMA, and I'm happy about that, because listen, I heard this like once. Like, it goes like this: if you it's the same thing in life over and over. It's like you're reading the same page of the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you want to try to read as many pages as possible. I enjoy that, right? So to me, like fighting MMA is kind of like a step back. So maybe Ben is kind of like the stage of his life. He's made enough money. He's been very successful, and he looks at it and he goes, you know, I don't, he doesn't have the same motivation to.
He was saying that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what do I have to prove, man? Like the guy's won, he's so successful already in wrestling and MMA. He's rich. What else? You know?
Yeah, he was talking about it post-fight, how he's considering retirement because he's managing his online training and he has a wrestling camp that he runs locally and all this. So, but he went into it because he wanted to prove he was the best fighter. But now that's kind of out the window at this point. You know, he can't take back the undefeated. You know what I mean? He's been defeated now. And someone made a comment saying, "Oh, you know, what a terrible trade that Dana White did." And then someone posted like, "Are you kidding? This is a wet dream." He launched his career of a superstar now, which is Masvidal, and he got ONE FC to look silly now because their number one guy that they couldn't find someone to beat now just got destroyed, twice
in a row.
Yeah, so it's like this is all that he could have wanted. And Dana White even commented, he goes, "Someone's been paying attention,"
Yeah.
So it's like
it's a good point. I think there's a huge win for the UFC.
It's a huge win for the UFC.
But one is coming to the United States though.
They're
coming. It's a matter of time before they end up here, and I wonder what's going to be the acceptance into the American market. I think they're going to have some resistance because most of their champions are Asian.
Yeah,
a lot of their champions are Asians or non-Americans, and it's Dana would much rather have Conor as a champion, not because he's American, because he speaks English. He's part of the Anglo world, right? In that sense, whereas Khabib is, he's Russian, man. He's like our biggest rival. Like, it's not the same thing. So the UFC would prefer American champions or English-speaking champions, at least, because they sell more tickets. As simple as that.
Yeah, I know the UFC is working a lot in China. They've built a UFC Institute there. I think actually my friend Forrest, he goes over there every so often to work with the athletes there. So like they're putting in money because they know that's a market that's going to blow up at some point.
Yeah.
So they're putting in the ground roots. So I think ONE FC is just doing a counter-strike of saying, hey, we can take you out of your home turf also, or we could at least not take you up, but probably challenge you a little bit.
Yeah, because they definitely see the threat.
Yeah.
There definitely is a threat. Like, ONE has done a really good job with their promotion. They're really growing in Asia, apparently. I think that's like 2/3 of the world population in that region.
They run as many, if not more, shows in the UFC, I believe. At least because if you go, I'm on their feed and there's new fights going on all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, I'll be honest, I haven't watched any. I see the clips.
Yeah.
They have some great stuff, good knockouts and stuff, but like, I don't know any of the guys.
No, I know. I'm sure that the fight, the level was super high, but you're right. Like, I know some of them, but most of the guys on there I've never heard of.
Yeah, so that's a problem. They have to create stars, and it's difficult. Everybody has a hard time doing that. Bellator does. I think to the extent every promotion's ever come up is trying to make a star that people are going to want to follow.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why am I tuning into your show if the UFC is around and the UFC has all the famous guys and marketing behind it that everybody knows what's going on? So it's kind of like nobody's really. NFL is football, right? Like, sure, you have like other leagues, but nobody's watching like XFL or other stuff. Everybody watches NFL.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So UFC has put themselves in that position where they are MMA. And everybody else is like under leagues, like the D1.
They're working to be in the UFC kind of thing.
Exactly. Like you're fighting theirs to get a spot in the UFC. So it's unfortunate that's the way it is, but that's the reality of the situation right now. So it's tricky because I think for fighters it's better if there's more.
Well, here's the thing: I don't see anyone challenging the NBA or the NFL anytime soon.
No,
I don't see that. But like UFC is not. They have a monopoly, and they are the premier league, no doubt. But I don't think they have something that can't be challenged. That's the difference. The UFC can be challenged. I think it's not. It's certainly a possibility. I mean, like I said, the NFL and NBA, not a chance. No way in the world is that going to happen. But the UFC, I could see it happening. Bad management, some bad decisions. ONE keeps doing a good job. Remember, 2/3 of the world population are in Asia alone, right? Probably more than that, really. So, if they keep building Asian champions, that means a lot. That's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of sales. And the truth of the matter is the American, Canadian, Australian market, which is probably 2-3/4 of the UFC's market, not that many people. If you do the math, not that many people.
The only problem they have is that that Western market is the highest paying market, right? Like, remember what happened with Pride? They went broke partly because they had some Yakuza dealings that ruffled everything up. But also the Asian pay-per-view is nowhere near in comparison to what American pay-per-view values are.
They pay a lot more, it's true.
They pay a lot more. So American pay-per-view value is the number one place to be, right? So like outside of that, it's like everybody else is fighting for scraps. So I'm not sure like the broadcast model for what like
is that changing as Asia continues to grow as an economic superpower, particularly China, right?
That would be that
because they're. Well, I mean, look what I don't know what their GDP was 20 years ago, or now for that matter, but I know it's grown a lot. I mean, they're like a few years away from toppling us as the biggest economy in the world, if they haven't already. So there's certainly a power shift here, and I think in a very like geopolitical way, like ONE and UFC are kind of expressions of that. Yeah. You can see the Asian challenge to the American market, and you see the American market trying to break into the Asian market, like you described the UFC's presence in China. Yeah, interesting. Like, it'll be interesting how that plays out in the future.
Yeah, it would be. And, the other thing is the whole pay-per-view model is also changing too. Like now, like we have subscriptions that you have to join in order to even get access to the pay-per-view. So there's like a paywall, So at a certain point, and everybody's now used to the subscription model. Imagine back in the day, you said to watch your favorite TV show, you have to pay $15 a month. You'd be like, no, I just get cable or whatever. But now we're all been trained by Netflix and Hulu and all these things. Like, it's normal to pay $20 a month so you can watch the regular broadcast shows.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you have to wonder, is the pay-per-view thing going to disappear? And people just going to be like, I just pay for a UFC subscription. And
I don't know if that model is, you're right. I never thought about that. I don't think
because I would, honestly, I already have Fight Pass. So I'm already doing it,
Yeah.
So it's not that much more of a stretch if they want to capture like a
Wait, you get all the UFCs on Fight Pass?
Well, no, you
get lots of content, but
you
not
get
UFC.
access to the archive of all their content.
But not the current event.
Not the current event. You still have to pay for a pay-per-view.
So what, you get like a week later, 2 weeks later? When is it going to be in the archive?
I don't know. Like, it's a good question. I'm not sure when it jumps in there. I usually get like some of the fights. Like, I'll probably get this, the BMF title.
Yeah.
But like once every couple months I'll watch a UFC. Like I'll buy a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Other than that, then I'll just look at clips. Because they're pretty pricey, if you consider it. It's like now like $60-$70 to watch a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And if you're watching all the fights, that means like 4 or 5 times a month. That's a $300-$400 you're gonna throw yourself under.
Yeah.
To watch fights. I mean, even as a steadfast fan, I'm like, I don't need to watch it that much.
No, that's the other thing. Like, I just kind of, I don't. The other thing, I see high level. Like, I'll give you, just maybe wrap this up. Like, if you're in the gym every day, I see high level sparring and grappling every day.
For sure.
If you put the average of, if you had to put a number at the ADCC, for example, or IBJJF Worlds or whatever, and that is a 10, right? And that is the 10 will be like, this is the average of this event. It's a 10. I feel that when I look at my competition class, the average there is like 8, maybe 9. I have world-class guys in my gym, right? Yeah. I watch them roll every day. To me, that's like, oh my God, if I have to see this event, it's like, it's a little bit better. So it's not super exciting to me anymore to like, I have to watch the highest level stuff all the time because I see it every day. And it's like a notch below on the average, right? But I'm used to seeing high level fighting all the time, man. It's one reason why I believe that professional jiu-jitsu struggles so much. They have a really hard time finding a recipe, like a template that works, that is profitable and does not require artificial money being injected into that professional event all the time until the millionaire gets tired. Yeah. And it's a similar thing, common theme in BJJ,
yes,
right?
It is. Yeah.
And it's difficult because you're in the gym every day. You watch people roll every day. It's not a novelty for you to see grappling. You go to a jiu-jitsu tournament, you know how many matches you watch when you go to a tournament.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You go to a Pan Am's, you're gonna watch like 200-300 matches in a day. Like it doesn't stop, man. So for you to get home and pay, you know, $20, $30, $40, whatever, to watch more jiu-jitsu on your weekend, it's kind of like it's hard to sell.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with grappling in general. It's not a spectator sport.
It's not. It's a practitioner sport.
Yeah.
Well, that they're trying to change that, but it's almost like they're swimming uphill, you know, because it's not. It's never worked in jiu-jitsu. They tried so many times. The only model that works, and everyone hates them for it because they're the only ones, other than Kip, maybe from Naga, and like maybe some other events, it's IBJJF. They make a killing. They're very successful, but their platform is not. It's not how much money Flow pays to have their event. I guarantee you that's not. That's like a drop in the bucket. It's from competitors.
Yeah.
Like that's where the money is,
Yeah.
and it's very organic and sustaining. Right? There's no artificial, well, we need $1 million injected into IBJJF, otherwise we're going to go out of business. Like, no, they don't. But like a lot of these professional events, if they don't have an angel investor coming in and dumping in another 200 grand, 300 grand into keeping that show alive, it doesn't work. I know this for a fact because we commentated for that Black Belt CBD Invitational. I know how much money they spent.
Yeah.
And, granted, the whole thing was organized in like 21 days, which was like a miracle. They're a lot more expensive than people think. Oh, it's the prize money that's expensive. That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's like not even a third of your costs.
Yeah.
It's the flights, the hotels, the production.
Yeah.
Like all of it, man. The logistics. It's a huge operation, and money goes quick. And there's a reason why people have such a hard time making jiu-jitsu a professional sport.
Yeah, I think what people need to understand, in order to make grappling common, like where you can actually make money off pay-per-view sales and whatnot, it has to be adopted on like a household level.
Yeah.
Essentially, there has to be grappling classes in high school, middle school, and whatnot, where everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, then essentially everybody has done it and can appreciate it. Because grappling is so technical that you can't just jump into it if you've never seen it or been training it before, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I was trying to say, hey, Rob, let's watch this video on the technical processes of the diesel combustion engine. Be like, I can't make sense of this. It's not entertaining, because it's very technical. And you have to have prior knowledge to appreciate, look at the beauty of this engine and how it works.
Yeah.
Grappling's the same way. It's very technical. So it's like, you can't just, that looks cute.
Everyone understands a knockout, which is one reason why the rules in MMA are geared towards that audience, because everyone understands a knockout. A lot of people look at a Kimura and go, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Like, they don't even see the lock, right?
Yeah.
Until it takes a lot of training. And even so, it's not as exciting as a knockout. And as a grappler, I admit that. I mean, in an impressive way. Yeah. Like, I get excited about beautiful submissions, right? But it's a much harder sell to the audience because grappling is difficult to understand.
Yeah, it's like wine tasting. Yeah. If you just have random people drinking wine, they're not going to appreciate it like a connoisseur. And it's like, the origins and
I think wine tasting is. I don't think it's interesting at all. No, I look at them going, what is that? Like, I just want to get tipsy and get a buzz. That's all I'm looking for, right? That's really what most people are looking for. Yeah. But I think sometimes that's how people look at jiu-jitsu. Like, you nerds.
that's the thing, right?
Who cares?
That's the problem. So like, if people who want to make grappling like popular as a professional sport, they actually need to put the money in educating people. Yeah. They need to be trying to get into like high schools and middle schools and at an early stage and kind of indoctrinating people into this martial arts in general. Because then it's going to be much easier to make headway because now you have a larger potential audience. Yeah. Right now we're still pitching to competitors or not even competitors, just people who practice martial arts, right? So like if we wanted to make those professional sports bigger for grappling, there needs to be more grapplers, or at least people who at an early age have been exposed to it and can appreciate it.
I will say this though, the end of my business would be the day jiu-jitsu is an Olympic sport. It's going to blow it for me. You know why? Because now it's going to be in schools. Why would you pay for a membership if you get it for free in school? Like, it's like opening a wrestling club. How hard is it to make money from a wrestling club?
Oh God, it is.
Like how many like amazing wrestlers are like out of a job as soon as they're out of college because unless they land a job coaching somewhere, which is super competitive, right? Or they're into a UFC fight, not a lot of options. Same thing for judo. Yeah. Like Ronda Rousey was a waitress, wasn't she? Like after the Olympics. I heard. I know
sure
I could be
story.
wrong, but she was like waiting tables, and she was like an Olympian. Think about that, right? Until she started fighting MMA. I could be wrong. That's what I heard. So don't quote me on it. Where it's because they're Olympic sports, so it's in a way for a business. It's not. I'll give you an example. Just in Europe, right?
Yeah.
Some countries, Scandinavian countries, France, the government pays for everything in sports. They're used to getting everything for free, right? So you go to your judo training center, gymnastics, whatever, hockey, the government pays for everything. It's covered. They're like preparing you. They want everyone practicing sports for a number of reasons, right? Olympics, overall health, well-being, happiness, keep kids out of, stay away from drugs and problems, whatever. It's very difficult to charge them a membership, I hear from these gym owners. Because when I go to the wrestling club and I pay $20 a year. Oh. And they go to the BJJ gym, we want 100 euros a month. They're like, what? To them it sounds crazy. So they struggle. It's difficult to make money and have like more than 50, 100 students in the gym because of that they're used to the government paying for funding sports. I as a fan, as a practitioner, and there's no contradiction here.
Yeah.
It may sound like it. As a fan, as a practitioner, as someone who loves jiu-jitsu, I would want jiu-jitsu in the Olympics. I want what you're describing, where like a lot of people and maybe the membership drops and we have more people training in high schools all over the country. As a business owner and someone who has 2 children and I have bills to pay and I'm dependent on this money, I'm like, no way. It's only a contradiction in terms of the fact that as a practitioner, someone who lives jiu-jitsu, I coexist with these things. So it's a contradiction in that sense. Not that you have to be one or the other. Like I can love jiu-jitsu, but not necessarily want it to. I would love it to be in the Olympics, but at the same time, like I don't want to stop making money. If I could figure out a way for it to be in the Olympics and that not change my income, like that'd be great. Is that possible? I don't know.
Yeah, it is a good.
I'm not
point.
sure I worded that correctly. Maybe it sounds like a contradiction, but
these
things coexist.
Yeah, I understand the point, and as a person who owns a school myself, I hadn't thought about it like that, which is a good point. Yeah, it's kind of like when the UFC was rolling around making UFC gyms everywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of school owners were worried because, like, essentially now we got someone like McDonald's opening up UFC gyms. Yeah. They're going to put us all broke. Turns out, it didn't work out.
Best things ever happened.
Yeah.
Actually worked in our favor.
Yeah, it just brought more attention.
Yeah.
But they didn't really have the quality.
Because they end up at our gyms.
Yeah.
After 6 months of training, they switch over.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
So it works out well. But maybe. But I do see your point because, I don't know of like private football clubs I know they exist, but
how profitable are they?
Yeah, I have.
Can you make a living from it?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah. Right, so it isn't interesting. It would create a problem in that sense. Yeah, because once people are trained to have something for free, they're not going to want to pay for it unless you can really demonstrate a lot of value behind what you're doing. And I guess it would depend who's running these programs. Like if they start getting guys like you and me to teach at a middle school, it's going to be a problem for a privately owned school.
100%. Yeah. Like even if the average BJJ black belt makes way more money than the average wrestling coach, I think. It has nothing to do with skill set. It has to do with just like BJJ has managed to be like an expensive sport, right? And still draw a lot of people because people will pay for just about any amount of money for something they really want. Look at how much money, women will spend on a purse. If they really want it, they're going to, and we have kind of become that in the world of martial arts. We're very, very pricey in comparison to what judo and wrestling are, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm two minds about it, man. Like if things did change, I'd be happy for future generations because they would get something I didn't get, which was going to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But it would break me. I'd be broke. I'm like, okay, I'm happy for you, but I'm broke. What am I gonna do now? I gotta, become. Well, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I'm sure I could figure something out if I really had to, but it wouldn't be as good as this. I'm very, very happy with what I do.
Yeah.
We work our asses off. Being a coach, gym owner is a lot more work than people think.
For sure.
It's very stressful job, but still better than most jobs.
Yeah, I agree. So it would be interesting. So hopefully, maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it happens when I'm not around anymore. And then you guys can make it. Going to the Olympics when I'm not around. No longer here. All right, Dave. It was a pleasure. This was. I always like our talks. They're very organic and they're not very planned. We hope that you guys enjoy as well. We get a lot of positive feedback, right? Like people always send direct messages on my inbox, like telling me how much they like the podcast, and it's very underrated. I think it's a huge compliment. Like I think that just gotta get the word out there and spread the word.
Yeah, you guys gotta do your part. Help us out. We greatly appreciate it. You know, we're doing what we can.
We try to get
one
one out there a week. We've been pretty consistent about it, so we're counting on you guys to help spread the word. And send us some suggestions too. So if you guys got anything that you would like us to talk about, something that maybe do this or do that, or talk more about this, less about that. We're very happy to hear some positive and even negative feedback. If there's something that we're doing wrong, I'm happy to hear it. Like I don't take things personally like that. Like if I get criticism, I always use it as a tool for growth. So anything that comes our way, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like I was just talking to Robbie before the show. Somebody had made a critique, and I was sharing with him so we can learn from it, and see like what we can do to improve. So, we're always looking to get better, So again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
All right, ciao.